signal to the players and the fans.
And then the Royals going with experience over youth as far as the guys that were called up, Bruce Chen and Brad Thompson.
We know Chen from last year, both as a starter and as a reliever. I think he'll be long relief now if they need him. And also a veteran Thompson. I thought he'd make it out of camp, but he did not. A veteran guy, sinker baller, try to keep the ball in the infield.
All right, let's get back to the good news. And the Royals offense, which continues to lead the American League in hitting. And the spark plug, I think, the guy who is leading the way. There's several guys off to a good start, but none better than Scott Pasednik.
I'll tell you, sometimes you don't know what you have until it's gone. They found out about Pasednik last week. Out 2 ball games, they really missed him. The offense goes flat. They got 1 hit in 2 ball games out of left field with him not here.
And as far as Royals history goes, Pasednik having one of the best starts in Royals history in the first 15 games. Now the question is split, is that rubbing off on the other guys because the Royals offense as a whole is having one of the best starts?
You know, I can tell you from my days that it's harder to work with men on base. Now, he's on base over half the time, so all of a sudden now there's pressure on the infield. Guys are out of position a little bit. Tough on everybody else out there. Easier on everybody that hits behind him.
Oh, and by the way, then there's Jason Kendall. He's back at the plate for Gil Meche. He has a 14-game hitting streak coming into the game tonight. And we'll talk more about the Royals and Twins when we come back.
To learn more, visit kia.com. And by Kellogg's, the best to you each morning. And a great night to be at Kauffman Stadium. A lot of Minnesota fans coming down I-35 to watch the Twins. Royals offense already on a roll split and feeling pretty good going up against Carl Pavano.
Well, they have certainly seen a lot of him over the last couple of years. Of course, he has been in the Central Division at Cleveland, now at Minnesota. These are his numbers from midseason a year ago. How about ninth start against the Royals in the last 2 years here at Kauffman Stadium? He'll fit right into the Minnesota prototype pitcher. In the zone early, you want to get after him early, you'll probably get something to hit.
Royals beat him on Sunday. The Twins beat Gil Meche on Saturday. Gil making his 20th career start against the Twins. Here's the Kia pitching report.
And maybe not a surprise he got in trouble early his first 2 times out because of the time that he missed in camp. But you want to watch out for guys in the middle, especially the MVP Mauer. Big-time numbers against Gil.
lineup that he will face, presented by M&I Bank. Joe Mauer got the day off yesterday, his first day off. J.J. Hardy also got the day off. Jim Thome will be the designated hitter, and Brendan Harris is still at third base for the Twins. They placed Nick Punto on the disabled list before the game tonight. When the Royals were in Minnesota, Scott Podsednik was 5 for 11 at the plate, and he did this in the field. Maybe the best play the Royals have had all season. Game 1 of 3 with the Twins is coming up next. Where HD is free with digital cable. So the Royals are home for 6, 3 against Minnesota over the weekend, and then the Seattle Mariners will be in town beginning on Monday night. Let's go down to the field, and let's go to right field, and here's Joel Goldberg.
Well, I'm still down by the field, Ryan. That's the good news, down by the track here in right field. A beautiful night. Unfortunately, we were unable to run Royals Live, our pregame show today, as every now and then some things happen, but we had an electrical failure in our mobile truck, and to give people an idea at home, it requires about 10 times as many amps to run that truck as it does for your house at home. And so every now and then these things do happen. The engineers did an amazing job getting us back up. I was trying to tell Frank, guys, that this never happens when Split's out there at Rivals with me. Frank pointed out that it's about as good a pregame show as we could have done. Flawless. Guys, back to you.
Well, Frank was going to do the pregame show with Joel, and he's going to have to wait another day now.
It's kind of funny because up here they're blaming all that on me.
Denard Span going after the first pitch. Frank will be on the post-game show tonight. So the power failure in some ways is like trying to freeze the foul shooter by calling a timeout right before he releases the first shot.
For a full half hour.
He's going to have to think about it now. Good start for Gil Meche. No balls, 2 strikes. Denard Span had a good series against the Royals. He was 5 out of 12 last weekend and began the series hitting just .189. Now he's hit in 7 straight games.
about that? Somebody made a good play already. All
It's
three of them.
It's always a good sign when the game begins with a good play on defense.
Good to see Gil get ahead in the count right here. Walks, a big-time problem for the Royals last weekend up in Minneapolis. How about 22 walks in those 3 ball games? The starters dealt out 14. Minnesota starters dealt out just 1 freebie.
Still 1 ball, 2 strikes. All right, let's ask the pitcher. When you are not throwing strikes, generally speaking, Split, how much of that is just being tentative about putting the ball in the strike zone, and how much of it has to do with poor mechanics?
Well, I think the mechanics came into play for him his last time out because of lack of work in camp. He missed his last 3 times out, so he was playing catch-up. Starts out in the zone tonight. I think the big item for him is downstairs with the fastball, and when he is on, he's on top. His best pitch is that little cutter down and away from the righties, and also some big-time bite in the curveball. So that's something we'll look at Gil here tonight. How about Span? He goes from 0-2 to 3-2. Talk about batting average not being important. 259 coming in, but already has 13 walks this year and a 397 on base percentage. Ideal leadoff man for Minnesota.
And if he keeps doing that, he's going to be scoring a lot of runs this year with Mauer, Morneau, Kadire, Kubel after him. Hits it right to Betancourt. So Gil wins this battle. 1 away. Here are the Royals defensively tonight, presented by Suzuki, with Sednick, Ankiel, and DeJesus in the outfield. Alex Gordon at third base with Unievsky, Betancourt, Alberto Callaspo and Billy Butler on the right side, and Jason Kendall, who finally got a day off during the Toronto series, back there for Gil Meche. So Jason Kendall with a 14-game hitting streak and batting .352 coming into the game tonight.
So much for a bad spring training for Kendall. Distant memory right now. Simply knows what he has to do to get ready for the season and is red hot from the get-go.
Orlando Hudson had a very good series against the Royals in Minneapolis. On base all the time. He had 4 hits. He walked 5 times and hit a long home run. In the game on Saturday, that's the game that Gil Meche started against John Parrish, and the Twins won 6-5. And that's line to center, sinking on Ankiel, who goes down. So the grass might be a little wet after all that rain yesterday, but Ankiel able to recover, and Hudson has a 1-out single.
Independence took on about an inch to an inch and a half of rain all day yesterday, so it is a little bit slick in the outfield, but overall this playing surface in great shape. Hopefully the rain stays away here tonight.
Really is a pretty night. Very comfortable evening in Kansas City. A little bit of a wind going right to left. 75 perfect degrees, and we started on time. Time and temp brought to you by the Parking Spot. Easy to spot, easy to park. The Parking Spot at KCI. Hudson without a stolen base, and Minnesota with 8 in their first 16 games. So they've slowly gone from more of a speed bat control team, still have the good bat control, to now more of a power team with Mauer, Morneau, Kadire, and Kubel. And the Twins with 16 home runs in their first 16 games.
I like the visiting unit they're going with this year. A little bit of a throwback. Got rid of the pinstripes that they used to feature. Their home units were a little different last week too, weren't they?
Yeah, both had kind of that throwback to more of the Met Stadium look than the Metrodome look. On the corner, 2 balls, 1 strike.
Talking about more power out of this Minnesota team a year ago. They had 4 different guys with better than 90 RBIs, so starting to show the home run potential. Maybe starting to develop their team out of the Metrodome to the target field. That guy doesn't change at all. Ron Gardenhart, about as steady a leadership as you can find even at the major league level. Now in his 9th year.
Surprisingly, has never won the American League Manager of the Year award.
He's got second place covered, though, doesn't he?
Yeah, sure does.
What, 5 different times?
Well, the early returns, based on the early returns, it appears, and it's still early, that maybe the ball doesn't carry as well as they thought at Target Field, because the Twins lost a lot of potential home runs in right center field and in left center field. Still played very well. That cutter just missed away, 3 balls, 1 strike. Still too early to know if the Twins are going to have a great home field advantage at Target Field like they did at the Metrodome. But based on the first homestand, they had almost all sellouts, and they went 6-3 in the 9 games. Meche just staying away and trying to hit that corner against Mauer. It's 3-2.
Problem with pitching away on a night like this with that wind blowing out the left field. Now, we know Mauer has that terrific power, even the left center, so you can't give him a steady diet. You got to balance it out, both inside and outside. But normally you try to go away early, force them to cover. That might open up some things inside.
Good bet to make contact. So Hudson runs, and Mauer drives it foul off to the left field side.
And I don't think there's any question that these guys had the best home field advantage, certainly in the American League, but their style will play anywhere. Solid pitching in the strike zone, don't walk people, handle it flawlessly. Just 1 error so far this year, had 76 errors all of last season. I mean, that will play indoors, out, whatever. Take it wherever you want. So it might not be a team in as big a transition as we might think.
Hudson runs again. Mauer fouls it away again. The Royals, on the other hand, going 4-5 on the road trip. Started off by taking 2 out of 3 in Detroit, then went to Minnesota and lost 2 out of 3, winning the final game. And then the same thing in Toronto. Lost 2 out of 3 and won the final game. That was on Wednesday afternoon. Hudson running again, and Mauer fouls it away again. So Hudson getting his running in. And the 9th pitch of the at-bat coming up to Mauer. Got a day off yesterday, and the Twins feel like that Mauer might be able to play a little bit more than he would at the Metrodome. Of course, one thing that doesn't change from turf to natural surface is that he's squatting in the dirt. He's never really on the grass or on the turf, but already in the first homestand, feeling a little difference with how his body felt in a day game after a night game. Pulled to first. So Billy to the bag. Hudson moves up to second base. 2 down. And now Justin Morneau, he's off to a good start, hitting at .357. And an on-base percentage of almost .500. And Gill's start against Minnesota had a 1-2-3 first inning, but then a 5-run second inning. And there are a couple of key walks to the number 9 hitter, Brendan Harris, and then walking Orlando Hudson right in front of Joe Mauer, who had a 2-run, 2-out single, and then Gill finished strong with 4 scoreless innings after that.
You give up the big inning early, it pretty much dooms you for the rest of the day, but those next 4 innings, very important for Gill because of the time that he missed in camp. That was almost like spring training for him again. And I talked to Jason Kendall and talked about what they wanted to do over those next 3 or 4 innings. He thought the fastball got better, the command got better, the big inning already behind him, kind of knew he was in trouble for the day. So, okay, let's go ahead and make something positive out of this. Let's work on the command. Breaking ball got better. So by the end of the day, he's had 4 pretty good innings, all back-to-back. So while it's a loss in the record and a bad day overall, it's not a complete waste.
Well, that's one way to look at it. He just had 1 bad inning out of 6. Busted bat, and Callaspo has it go off of his glove. So an inch away from being out of the inning. And Morneau drives in his 11th.
Really pretty good attack by Gill right there, because he gets Mauer on a soft swing and a little roller to first base. Now a big-time jam shot right here. That ball just knocked right on the knuckles of Morneau. Shatters his bat, and that's how close Cayaspo came. A little more range at second base. Oh, man. Had it timed perfectly.
So now Michael Kadire. And Kadire has always done well against Gil Meche. Batting over 400 in his career against Gil.
Kadire had a great homestand. How about a dozen RBIs?
Now, Split, every pitcher is trying to avoid a big inning. But what are some of the things when a pitcher says, I need to do a better job of avoiding the big inning? What things are in his control?
Well, I think the command is the first thing. Your pitch selection, make sure you mix things up, and don't panic. Slow down. Your natural tendency is try to overthrow, try to overpower people. But just slow down a little bit, take a breath, and make sure you get ahead in the count. I don't think you can stress the count enough. If you're ahead in the count, the odds are in your favor. Big thing for Gill is many times balancing out. He's away so much, and Jason Kendall's aware of that. He knows he wants to work him inside as well.
That was an 0-2 pitch and a curveball that stayed up. Morneau to third. Scott Olger's going to wave him home, and Betancourt's throw arrives late. So the Twins with a couple of runs after 2 outs.
Ryan, you just talked about what do you do to avoid the big inning. Well, you know you've given up a run on a couple base hits. Hudson with a little looper center, then a broken bat. But how about an 0-2 hanging breaking ball right there? I mean, hitters dream at night of having pitches like that they can do, especially when they're down in the count. That's an offering. You ought to be able to bury a guy. You want it down outer half of the plate. Go kind of flip that one up there. Wasn't a good release point for him. It's just spinning up there waiting to get hit.
And now to the struggling Jason Kubel, who is 0 for his last 13. And over a little longer stretch, he is just 1 for 22. Begins the series batting 180. And Rip to Cayaspo plays it chest high. And the Royals are out of the inning, but Minnesota comes up with a pair of 2-out RBIs from Morneau and Kadire. Now the Royals coming up against Carl Pavano with the M&I Bank batting order. DeJesus Besednik Butler, Jose Guillen, who had 447 on the road trip, hitting cleanup, followed by Alberto Callaspo, Rick Ankiel, and Jason Kendall. Alex Gordon, who had the game winner on Wednesday in Toronto, followed by Yuniesky Betancourt, another Royal who had a very good road trip. And here's the Kia scouting report on 34-year-old Carl Pavano.
And look what the lefties have done against him. So heads up to all the lefties in the lineup tonight. A sinker ball pitcher, loves the ground ball. He can get in the zone early and try to pitch down in the zone, see how many ground balls he can get. One of those guys, you can go to the plate looking for something early to hit, much like most of the other Minnesota pitchers. Pavano, a nice acquisition late last year.
He was released by the Cleveland Indians, and the Royals faced him 3 times with Cleveland, then 4 times with Minnesota. The Royals had never faced one pitcher 7 times in a season before Pavano last year.
He had trouble getting a sinker down in Cleveland, gave up 19 home runs. Just remember the tribe.
That's pretty common, though, isn't it? I mean, sinker ball guys, for the most part, get ground balls, but they also give up home runs, don't they?
Yeah, that sinker that doesn't carries a long way. There's a good one right there, and that's the end result.
Hardy right behind the bag with a quick toss over to Morneau. And De Jesus is down, 1 away. Minnesota defensively, presented by Suzuki. They have committed 1 error. 1 in 16 games. Kubel, Span, Kadire in the outfield. Harris at third with Punto on the DL. Hardy and Hudson up the middle. Morneau at first. And the Gold Glove winner Joe Mauer behind the plate. And that has been a staple of the Tom Kelly and now Ron Gardenhire Minnesota Twins. They want to, as they say, pick the ball up on defense. One and one on Scott Pasednik. Joe Goldberg.
Well, Ryan, you were talking about that style of play. I asked Ron Gardenhire his early impressions of the Royals. He said, hey, they've got 3 outfielders that can play center field. That's pretty good because they'll track down every ball. Really good coverage. He said, we knew they had good pitchers, but they brought in some of the right guys, as we're going to see a ground out here, but brought in some of the right guys, including guys like Scott Pasednik. He said, running now, they're running and they're forcing the issue, and that is fun for baseball. But he said, and this is something that we've seen year after year with the Twins, there is not one simple way to winning the game. You can win it with your glove, your bat, and your legs, and he thinks the Royals are closer to doing that, guys.
All right, thank you, Joel.
Joel's in for a good 3 days. He loves to go into Gardenhire's office. I mean, he'll be gone for 45 minutes. Is Joel here today? Well, no, he's over with Gardenhire. And he comes out and says, man, that's some of the best time I have all year. We won't see him tomorrow either. He'll be gone.
Informative and entertaining. Ron Gardenhire, that is. 1 ball, 1 strike to Billy Butler, who drove in 5 during the road trip.
Joel, entertaining, questionable, intriguing.
Well, that's something that Billy is seeing a lot of, and Frank talked about it. And he's seen this before. Teams just trying to pound him inside. And really, that's all he can do with that pitch is pull it foul.
Yeah, pull it foul if he looks to pull it. The other thing he can do is keep his hands inside the ball, which he's very good at. He does it especially well with 2 strikes. Big thing for him is his balance. Does a good job of keeping his balance at the plate. Tough to get him off balance to where he's reaching for the ball.
A couple of guys right now around home plate known for that. I don't know if there's anyone better in the league as far as balance goes than Joe Mauer. And the same for Billy Butler. Butler a little more movement in the batter's box than Mauer.
And I think the guy in baseball right now would be Albert Pujols. Sits out of that wide open stance, and you just cannot get him to move at the plate. Always seems to be on balance against all kinds of pitchers, all kinds of pitches, inside, outside, fastball, breaking ball. And I think from there you grade on down. We have 2 of the better ones in the ballpark here tonight.
Couldn't jump on the slider, so Butler is down, and so the Royals in order against Pavano. 2-0 Minnesota with Justin Morneau and Michael Kadire driving in runs with 2 outs in the first. It'll be Jim Thome, J.J. Hardy, and Brendan Harris in the second inning. Thome with 2 home runs, his second against the Royals last weekend, giving him 44 against KC, and that's the most of any player against the Royals in history. And he continues to move up the all-time charts with 566 career home runs. That is 12th all-time. And next up on the list is Rafael Palmeiro, who has just 3 more than that. And a 1-1 pitch is driven almost to the warning track and right into Jesus, who set a Royals record on the road trip for consecutive errorless games in the outfield, and is there to make the play. You can visit FoxSportsKansasCity.com for exclusive Royals video content. Today, Royals bench coach John Gibbons describes his big break in becoming a major league manager. You can see it now at FoxSportsKansasCity.com. 1-0 on J.J. Hardy, 0 for his last 11. And like Joe Mauer had a day off yesterday, a little bit of a sore knee. And hitting just .228 in his first year in the American League, coming over from the Brewers. Minnesota sending outfielder Carlos Gomez to Milwaukee, and they certainly worked on Carlos Gomez for a couple of years and just couldn't get him to be the type of player they wanted him to.
A little too much style to suit the Minnesota folks. He was an exciting player, no doubt about that. Blockbuster deal because you give up the guy that it looks like you're going to build your outfield around for a few years, pick up a shortstop. When a guy comes over from the new league, you want to have somebody on your team that knows him. Of course, he and Jason Kendall played together a number of years in Milwaukee.
That's Gill's first strikeout. So ahead of Hardy, puts him away, and there are 2 down. And now Brendan Harris. When the Royals and Twins began their series a week ago today, Nick Punto, who was right behind Harris in the blue sweatshirt, was in the starting lineup and then was a late scratch because of a groin injury. Never did play and was put on the disabled list today. So Harris will be getting some playing time, and Gill bounces back with an 8-pitch second inning. He is the subject of tonight's Sprint, you call it. The sweepstakes allow you to enter for a chance to win a suite for you and 11 guests to a future Royals game. If you participate tonight, you'll get a bounce back text message showing you how you can enter, or you can go to the website. 9 different opportunities this year to win a suite. at Kauffman Stadium. So tonight's question: whose bat has been the best so far? Scott Posednik with that .440 batting average. Jose Guillen, 6 home runs, 13 RBIs. Pounded to third. Harris was deep, but has time to throw out Guillen, one away. Jason Kendall, 14-game hitting streak. He's batting .352. So what do you think? Text 432-432. Enter keyword Royals, followed by a space, an ABC. And we'll be checking those totals throughout the game.
I think it's awesome that you have 3 legitimate candidates like that. I mean, you can make a case for every one of those guys.
All have significant hit streaks coming into tonight. Posednik 9 games, Guillen 11, and Kendall with the longest at 14. Callaspo into center field, and the Royals have their first base runner. Just a reminder to look for the Miller Lite Taste Greatness moment later in tonight's game. So Callaspo at first for Rick Ankiel. A bullet to Morneau. Out at second. Double play. And that's the way it goes when you're 0 for your last 15. There's Captain Hook. Here's tonight's league leaders, brought to you by your Kansas City area Toyota dealers. Most runs per game, 2 of the best in this series. Tampa Bay is off to a great start. Minnesota Twins are 2nd in the league in runs scored so far. The Royals are 6th, but they've played 1 fewer game than the other 3.
Tampa Bay is absolutely wearing out Boston already this year. At Fenway.
Went in there and swept them in 4 games. Span grounded out to short in the first inning. Minnesota's 2 runs coming in the first, and then Gil Meche back in the second with an 8-pitch inning.
Span bounced around everywhere last year. Right field, left field, center field finally. Settled in at center field the last 2 months of the year. Actually been in their organization a while. Not an instant success, but is now.
Jesus running over to the line, trying to hold him to a single, and he does. Span has hit in 8 straight games. And Minnesota has the leadoff man on.
Trying to come inside with the fastball right there, the cutter. That's a good pitch. Like to deal that one every time. Half the ball on the plate, half of it inside off of the plate. Span showing a pretty good back right there. Stays back, hands through the zone, and laces it up the right field line. David makes a nice play to hold him to a single right here. I think we started to see on that last road trip some people are going to try David in right field. We knew it was going to happen sooner or later.
How about that backhanded dig by Kendall?
I think they've all hit on the plate too, which kind of speeds it up a little bit. Sometimes it stays down a little bit more. Plus, if it hits the front edge, it's going to go over the shoulder.
Almost got him. Span has half of Minnesota's 8 stolen bases. He's been thrown out once.
One of the things the Royals really worked hard on in spring training was all of their right-handers quickening up their move to first base. Try to shorten those leads a little bit if you can. Gil, one of the guys that worked on it pretty hard. And a big guy. Gil at 6'4" and about 230 pounds, so not easy to quicken up the feet there.
Span running, and Kendall lost the grip. So no throw, and Span has his 5th. That's bullpen coach Steve Foster writing on the lineup card there, and Trey Hillman is giving him a lot of the credit for the improved pickoff moves to first base.
Royals have a good staff. Number of guys with their strengths in different areas. All the little things that you can do that can turn into a big thing throughout the course of a year. Jason Kendall threw out the first 2 base stealers, trying against him on the homestand, but now for his last 5.
That bunt is foul. Kendall trying to jump on it quickly before it spun back into foul territory. 2 balls, 2 strikes on Hudson. Game 2 tomorrow with Luke Hochaver, who's 2-0 against Nick Blackburn, with the first pitch at 6:10. Royals Live begins at 5:30.
This would normally be the start for Blackburn, but he came out of the game last weekend with some soreness behind his elbow, so Pavano flip-flops with him. Blackburn has an extra day off.
Still 2-2. Orlando Hudson, he's been around a while now. Former 43rd round draft pick back in '97 with the Blue Jays. He's also played for Arizona, 1 year with the Dodgers, won a Gold Glove with LA, and then a late sign during the offseason by the Twins. And now Span will move up to third base. So Hudson's job goes from trying to get him to third to now trying to get him to the plate. That is a wild pitch.
Gill going for the strikeout in this last curveball that he absolutely buried in front of the plate. This is almost an impossible block for Kendall. Got over to his side, see how he squared up his body, try to keep the ball in front of him. That's pretty good range to his right to try to keep it in front, but that's a tough block right there. Maybe the thing that helped him was the breaking ball, so it bounced back into him. Breaks one way because of the spin, it comes back the other.
And now Hudson walks. Wasn't quite sure about the count. Runners at first and third, nobody out for Joe Mauer.
Right now you go into the damage control mode. Figure you're going to give up 1 run. This is part of the batting order, the speed that they have on bases, but try to keep the ball down, see if you can coax an infield ground ball. The Royals will play their middle infield back, look for a double play possibility.
There is an enormous hole on the right side. That is a big target for Mauer. Even with his power, remember he's won 3 of the last 4 batting titles, and you don't do that unless you have good bat control, and I'm sure he is well aware of that right side.
Well, absolutely you're aware of it, but you're also aware that they're going to try to pitch to the defense, which means pitch away, something you can't pull. They're not going to give you that whole side of the field and go ahead and throw your off-speed stuff inside, something you can pull. Jason Kendall once again set up on the outside corner. And time to talk about it.
Yeah, because you can pitch around Mauer and not allow him to hurt you, but now you're looking at a bases loaded, nobody out with Morneau coming up.
And Gill kind of digging his own hole. He had a couple strikes on Hudson, buried the breaking ball, got the wild pitch, a man over the third, then missed with another one and missed his target badly. So kind of digging his hole a little bit deeper. What is it Lou Holt says when you find yourself in the hole? Stop digging.
I never heard that before.
I heard that last one. That was pretty good.
Well, there's the pitch away he was looking for. 2-1.
Some hitters that don't have much experience would go after a pitch like that because it's in the zone. They say, okay, I can kind of handle that a little bit. Instead of being a little bit more patient, maybe find something you can really pound.
Kendall sets up away, and it's fouled away.
Now this is where you would like not to have the 2-2 count, because if you had another one to work with, you can come inside off the plate, kind of move the hitter's hands or move his eye level a little bit before going back to the outside corner. But you don't want to run it to 3-2. So whatever you pitch, you want to get him out on, you want to throw it right here. My guess is going to have to be away.
Kendall asking for a changeup. Hudson's running. Mauer strikes out, and again, Kendall loses the grip. So you get the strikeout of Mauer. That was the heavier lift. But Hudson moves up, and the Twins with 2 stolen bases in the inning.
And Gill, the last 3 pitches, just nailing down that outside corner. Pulling the string a little bit. Had Mauer out in front of that one. Pulled the string. Good answer to the outside edge. And Kendall trying to be a little too quick with the change right there. Hudson would get his first stolen base of the year. Now you have a base open. You can go ahead and pitch around this guy if you want to.
Morneau driving in a run with 2 outs. And I use the word driving very loosely because Gill shattered his bat. And Morneau must have broken 4 or 5 bats in the weekend series in Minnesota. He got his hits. Not many of them were squared up. Got him to chase one out of the zone there. 1-1.
I remember a series that the Royals played against the Twins probably 2 or 3 years ago, about 3 weeks into the year. Morneau got off to a very slow start. Kind of the same thing. Slow bat, getting jammed, not centering things up. Hit a couple of home runs against the Royals that year. Went on to have a tremendous campaign.
Cutter is inside. Well, theoretically, you've got a right-hand pitcher throwing to a lefty with an open base and a right-hander coming up. But that right-hander, Michael Kadire, has an RBI double, and he hits well over 400 in his career against Meche. 3-1. What kind of pitch you think Morneau's going to get here?
I wouldn't. I'd have to pitch him on my terms. I'm not going to give in a whole lot and put the ball in too much of the plate. Gill missed badly with that last curveball. I wouldn't think they'd go back to that again. At this point, you wonder, does he have a good feel for the curveball now? Did go to it. Well thrown in the outside corner. Curve is giving him trouble this inning. That was the pitch that he buried against Hudson, trying to get the strikeout. Bounced it about a foot in front of home plate, then missed with the previous one. You want to have a pitch that if you throw a couple bad ones, you can automatically get back to it. You're not going to lose it for 2 or 3 innings.
29 pitches in the first inning. Minnesota scored 2, and then only 8 in the second. Walked him. So they're loaded up. Kadire does very well against Gil Meche, but with the bases loaded, there's an opportunity for a double play to get out of this. Gill was ahead of Kadire 0-2 and hung a curveball to him, and Kadire driving in Morneau. Morneau had singled in Orlando Hudson. And a cutter for strike one. Not exactly where Jason Kendall wanted it, but a strike nonetheless.
Big item. It was in the zone, down in the zone, outer part of the plate. We try to stay away and neutralize power. Kadire, career high 32 home runs a year ago.
Staying inside, 1-1. Gill already at 60 pitches, so working on a pace of 20 pitches per inning. Well, he got Kadire reaching at a pitch that was away, but pulled it foul.
Well, he's gone cutter down the way, ball inside off the plate, and something else off speed away, trying to get him to roll over the top, see if he can coast the ground ball that you could turn into a double play. Royals play Kadire as a pull hitter. Gill's still not throwing enough strikes. First two ball games, about 60% of them were in the zone. We'd like to have it at least 65, if not 2/3 of them.
Jammed him. They're going to have to hurry. Out at second, and a little late at first. So Span scores, and it's 3-0.
Only base runner you'd be able to double up on this is going to be a plotter. That throw to second base a little bit too long, as Betancourt had to go to the hole. The ball not sharply hit anyhow. And Kadire, who does run average major league speed, beats it by less than half a step. Getting close to getting the double play, but just missed out.
Made too good of a pitch. I mean, because let's face it, usually when you get a double play ground ball, that ball has to be hit pretty hard.
Kadire hit the last one awful hard. Let's not let him do it again.
Well, let me add, you have to hit it pretty hard, and you have to hit it at someone. Kubel grounded hard, but right at Callaspo in the first inning, so that makes him 1 for his last 23.
Primarily a designated hitter for the Minnesota Twins. Ron Gardner gets into the lineup just trying to mix things up for him a little bit. Give Delman Young the day off. Get Kubel out of the DH slot. Let him go play some defense. Maybe that'll help him break out of a slump.
That makes slumps even more difficult when you're only the DH, because you're given one opportunity to help the team. At least if Kubel makes a good play on defense, he can leave the ballpark at night feeling like he did something.
Twins very confident that Kubel's going to be able to bounce back this year. He's one of those guys that you overlook. You always hear about Mauer and Morneau. And this guy was 8th in the league in slugging percentage a year ago. Would probably be a regular outfielder for them by now if he hadn't blown out his knee 4 or 5 years ago. He had reconstructive surgery. It cost him about a year and a half.
This will be pitch number 30 in the inning for Gill. And it's also his 3rd walk of the inning. So pitch count is going to be an issue for him, as he's coming up now on 70 pitches. And Bob McClure going to go out there and give him a little bit of a break.
Well, Gill had 4 walks against these guys last weekend. We were hoping he'd be able to cut down on that total here, but having trouble getting out of inning number 3.
Talked about the 2 moves that the Royals made, one of them involving bringing up veteran Brad Thompson, who the Royals have seen several times pitching for the Cardinals. He began the year at AAA Omaha. The Royals releasing Juan Cruz before the game and designated Luis Mendoza for assignment. So Bruce Chen and Thompson called up. Bruce Chen was throwing very well. Now Thompson's numbers reflect more of a bad first start, but was throwing well when the decision was made to call him up to Kansas City. And Gill goes with a changeup, and ball one on Jim Thome, who lined to Jesus in right field in the second inning. Thome has 11 career hits and 2 career home runs against Meche. 2-0.
You see Kendall set up on the outside part of the plate, and that pitch down and in, not anywhere near what the Royals catcher had in mind. With Gill's stuff, able to ride the fastball up and away, I think if there's one hole in Thome, not just a hole or a big hole or something he can't handle, it'd be right in that zone right there. Try to take him the opposite way. Line drive that he hit back in the second inning had topspin on it. Looked like he might get over David's head in right field, but the topspin made a dive at the last moment.
Thome taking all the way. On Saturday, homered against Gilmesh to straightaway center field.
How many times do we see that in Chicago? Straight up the middle of the deep part of the park.
Hit hard to Butler. Meche to the bag. Inning over. 35 pitches. Minnesota scores 1 for a 3-0 lead. De La Salle Soul, the Society of Urban Leadership in 2008, made up of young professionals seeking to revitalize the De La Salle Education Center's mission through volunteering. Also serves on the Don Bosco Community Center board. So welcome to Andy and his friends sitting in the Buck O'Neill legacy seat. So Carl Pavano with a 3-0 lead. He'll get Kendall, Gordon, and Betancourt. Kendall going out of the strike zone and down, no balls, 2 strikes. One of the subjects of tonight's You Call It, presented by Sprint, whose bat has been the best so far, 55%, saying Scott Posednik, with his .440 average, followed by Jose Guillen and Kendall. Reaching out, and he pokes it into right center field. Span, with great speed, runs it down. 1 away. Tuesday night will be the U.S. Navy USS Missouri night at Kauffman Stadium. Special guest Admiral McLaughlin will be on the field before the game and will join us in the booth to talk about the commissioning of the USS Missouri. Boulevard Brewing Company, proud sponsor of Royals Live, our post-game show, also a sponsor of the USS Missouri commissioning. So we look forward to that on Tuesday with the Royals and the Mariners. 0-2 to Alex Gordon, who homered in the 10th inning with 2 outs in Toronto. And the Royals, after taking a lead into the 8th, ended up beating the Blue Jays in 10. Off of left-hander Scott Downs to straightaway center field. Did he go? Third base umpire Greg Gibson says no swing.
That home run was a nice redeemer for Gordon, who had a tough day overall, but walks out of there with the game winner. Just watching his first couple of at-bats coming back this year, Ryan. Remember how he used to dip the backside? It looks like they worked pretty hard on to keep him level with the shoulders, keep that bat level through the zone. Get that home run to the deepest part of the ballpark in Toronto.
And on that topic, I asked Kevin Seitzer, what is something to watch from Alex Gordon that shows that he's doing what the Royals want him to do? And Kevin said if he is back spinning the ball, so hitting down on the ball, not looping with topspin, if he's back spinning the ball and driving it to left center field, that's what Kevin and Alex worked a lot on this offseason. Count has gone from 0-2 to 3-2 and got him with a fastball. Pavano strikes out his second. Tomorrow night, the Royals are saluting Zach Greinke with a bobblehead presented by Sprint, given away to the first 20,000 fans for the 6-10 game with the Royals and the Minnesota Twins. If you'd like tickets or more details, go to Royals.com or call 1-800-6-ROYALS. And how did Phil get himself a Greinke bobblehead before everyone else? How's little Splitty doing these days?
I saw one recently at Mom's kitchen table, still doing fine.
Okay.
Checking him out every morning.
Little Splitty, if you remember several years ago, had himself a nice little journey throughout the American League.
He loved big league travel.
Betancourt coming off a 400 road trip, drives it into right center, and he'll be at second base with 2 outs.
Betancourt getting good plate coverage right there on a pretty good pitch. Certainly away, if not down and away. Yeah, that ball's at least a corner, if not off of it. Didn't try to pull it. Stayed with it. We know he has gap power, not necessarily home run power. If he can make solid contact, it's good to see him get on the bases. He's a .335 career hitter against Minnesota. He likes playing against the Twins.
Inside on David DeJesus. David trying to drive in a run with 2 outs. And the Royals on the road trip, more than half of their runs came with 2 outs. So a lot of clutch hitting. Royals scored 48 runs in the 9 games, and 25 of those with 2 outs. 1 ball, 1 strike. David grounded out to short in the first inning.
Twins wanted to keep Pavano on their roster for this year, offered him arbitration. A lot of teams, especially the small market ones, do not offer veteran guys the opportunity to go to arbitration. If they can get them signed, that's one thing, but don't put them in a position where they can go. But Minnesota wanted Pavano to round out their staff. They don't have a prototypical #1 guy, but they have some talent from top to bottom.
Good movement. That started inside. Caught the corner. Pavano's ahead 1-2.
That's good for 1 at bat. Started inside, frees the hitter. Most big league guys will be ready for it the next time. Pavano, terrific in the postseason last year. Game 3 against New York. 7 strong innings, gave up just a couple runs. That's probably one of the reasons they wanted to bring him back.
And you know, that felt good for him after what happened to him in 4 years with the Yankees. Got a big contract of almost $40 million, but because of various injuries, only pitched in 26 games and was booed out of the state.
9 wins on 4 years. You think they want more out of that in New York?
Well, let's see. What's 38 million divided by 9? That's pretty good change per victory. But he had Tommy John surgery, he had shoulder problems, he had broken ribs, you name it.
And now he'll spend the next couple of years trying to shake the tag of a guy who is fragile. And you wouldn't think he'd be fragile when you look at the size of him. I mean, 6'5", 250. He's big enough to go get a regular job. Doesn't need one here.
$4.25 million per victory, by the way, in case you're scoring at home.
With a lot of zeros, huh?
And it was a dream come true for Pavano. He is from Connecticut. In fact, New Britain, where the Twins have their AA farm team. But he grew up a Yankee fan. So that was a thrill for him to sign up with them. But the dream come true ended up being a nightmare in the end. David didn't take a very good swing, but he's still breathing.
You could see why the Yankees wanted to sign him. He had a lot of luck against them when he was at the Florida Marlins. 18-game winner back in 04. Had a 3.0 ERA. It was a terrific set for the Marlins that year.
The year before, that staff beat the Yankees in the World Series. You know, the interesting thing about it is sometimes you got to take a risk on someone like Pavano. You mentioned the 18-win season. Is that a sign for things to come? Because if you go back and you look at his entire record, his record was below 500 in his career, but he got a lot of money for winning 18 games in one season. David lines to center field. Betancourt waved home. Span's throw fades up the line, and the Royals come through again with 2 outs.
David DeJesus has a knack for driving in runs out of that leadoff spot. For some reason, he can do very well driving them in with the leadoff hitter, but dropping down to number 3 or putting him in another spot, you seem to lose some of his ability to produce that run. You talk to him about it, and he says, hey, my approach is the same. You know, I want to cover the plate. I want to get a ball I can handle something up and out over the plate. That was a pretty good pitch on the inside part of the plate. Still hit it hard to center field.
You know, interesting though, Split. You said you can only really get away with that once with a major league hitter. A pitch that starts inside and tails over the plate. And David saw that earlier in the at-bat. And maybe this pitch wasn't as good, but it was the same approach from Pavano.
Pavano had gotten him swinging at a changeup out of the strike zone down on the previous pitch, so it's a good idea, a good time to come back with another fastball in the hands, try to tie him up.
Pasednik grounded to Morneau at first in the first inning.
Of all the Minnesota Twin outfielders that you try to take an extra base on, Span the center fielder would be the guy. Kadire, great arm in right. Kubel throws pretty well in left. Normally it's Dumb and Young out there. He has a very strong arm. So if you're going to try any of the 3, try the center fielder.
Fouled away by Pasednik. All he did was hit .519 on the trip. He missed a couple of games. His wife, pregnant wife, and young daughter were involved in an automobile accident. Everyone is okay, but he was away from the Royals for a couple of games. So he hit .519. He also walked 4 times. And he stole 3 bases. Didn't get the call. It's exactly what Pavano and Maurer wanted. 1 and 2.
Had a pitch to work with here, no balls and 2 strikes, so go for the perfect one. And I think they got it.
Yeah, I didn't get enough of it though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Pasednik is the Royals' number 2 hitter, but he is really a second leadoff hitter. So DeJesus could run, and if he's out, well, Pasednik just leads off the next inning and has the very good on-base percentage. And if David is successful, well, then it only takes a single to get him home. not running, and the count is 2-2.
One of the reasons for that pitch right there is if David is running, Mauer has a perfect pitch to handle away from the left-handed hitter, so he's already out from behind that bat to try to gun him down at second base. So that pitch right there was an opportunity to get a guy out, but also give your catcher a chance to throw that guy out should the Royals be running. They're going to stay away again.
And not running. Mauer handles it in the dirt, and now DeJesus will be running with a full count and 2 outs. Pavano retired the first 2. Then Betancourt doubled. DeJesus brought him home with a single. And the Royals have had several rallies already this year that began with 2 outs and nobody on. So David runs, and Pasednik hits it in the air to right. Probably chased ball 4. Kadire brings it down. The inning is over. But DeJesus with 2 outs drives in Betancourt, and it's 3-1. What's possible with the nation's fastest 3G network, AT&T Rethink Possible. And by Panera Bread, explore a menu of hearty soups, salads, sandwiches, and breakfast items at Panera Bread. So the Royals on the board. Gil Meche back to work. J.J. Hardy struck out looking in the second inning. Hardy 0 for his last 12. And now Gil has to work on being more efficient tonight. He has already thrown 74 pitches, including 35 in the third inning. Betancourt gets a nice big hop and a good start to the fourth for Gil. So Hardy is 0 for his last 13. Coming up on Sunday, NASCAR on Fox moves to Talladega, that is.
That's in Alabama.
You know what I was talking about.
That's in Alabama.
Coverage of Sprint Cup Series racing from Talladega, thank you very much, begins Sunday at 11 a.m. in high definition on Fox. That little stumble there allowed me to shorten up the promo, and I didn't have to try and pronounce a guy's name that I most likely would hack up. But you're the gearhead of the broadcast team here. So what's going on with NASCAR these days?
I tell you, they're having a heck of a year. Denny Hamlin won last weekend, 3 weeks after having knee surgery, reconstruction. So the recovery time for a NASCAR guy after the ACL is 3 weeks.
Wow.
He won at Fort Worth.
And let me think, he blew out his ACL when he was getting into the car, or what?
No report on that. Actually, he won a race 3 weeks ago as well in Martinsville, Virginia. He was supposed to run on Sunday, surgery on Monday. Well, he got rained out, like last week at Fort Worth. Ran it on Monday. He put off his knee surgery till Tuesday. And he's back already. How about that?
So this is what you've been doing with all your time.
You've been at the ballpark a lot.
Yeah.
We've kind of grown apart a little bit, unfortunately.
Paul Splittorff, ladies and gentlemen. If you'd like more NASCAR news, just go to www.asksplit.com.
And it's a tri-oval this weekend at Talladega.
Of course it is.
So look for some really good speeds.
That is 4 walks already for Gill in 3 1/3 innings. And he lets the number 9 hitter, Brendan Harris, get away. And remember, I told you earlier in the game when Gill had the 5-run second inning against Minnesota on Saturday, that rally really started to build after a walk to the number 9 hitter, Brendan Harris. No disrespect to Brendan Harris, Split, but a number 9 hitter that's hitting below 200 is someone you don't want to give a free base to.
There was a reason a guy who hit 8th and 9th, and this was an inning to possibly play some catch-up after the 35-pitch 3rd inning for Meche. You know, you can get these guys quick, have a quick 1-2 out in the bottom part of the order before you go back up top. So now he finds himself with a man on base again. And you can have that tough inning as long as you can go 1-2-3 the next time. Had the long first, but got 7, 8, 9 in order back in the second. So now you have a tough third. Got to have a nice, easy fourth.
Span lays off a close pitch, and it's 3-0. He singled, stole his 5th base, and scored in the 3rd inning. That was one positive that Gill could take out of that long third. 35 pitches and 3 walks, but Minnesota scored only 1. And now back-to-back walks with 1 out. So Gill in trouble again. Trey Hillman looking down to the bullpen as Thompson is warming up for a 2nd time. Gill has missed with 8 in a row.
Gill got off to a pretty good start as far as finding the strike zone, but now 5 walks in the last 2 innings. After the last inning and the 3rd.
And Trey just giving Thompson a little more time to warm up. So Gill will go 3 1/3. And Thompson comes on with 2 on, 1 out. Our Chevy call to the bullpen. Thompson will get Orlando Hudson when we come back. Wait at least 4 days to take the mound again and think about a 5-walk performance against Minnesota in 3 1/3 innings. Twins have runners at 1st and 2nd and 1 out. Here's the Roadrunner Turbo speed pitch comparison. The velocity is there, 95 with the fastball, Pavano at 93. Fast is even faster. Double your speed with Roadrunner Turbo from Time Warner Cable. So Brad Thompson, who is from the Cardinals organization, inherits 2 with 1 out.
Non-roster guy in spring training. I kind of thought he'd make the ball club. We talked about that in the open. I thought he would be the Jamie Wright of a year ago. Veteran guy for the bullpen. Sinker ball guy. More of a ground ball pitcher than he is a strikeout guy.
Orlando Hudson singled and scored in the first inning, walked, stole a base in the third. Harris at second, Span at first, both walked in this inning, and a chance for 2. Out at second, and the throw gets away from Butler, bounces off the screen, and Butler tried to tag Hudson. The ball went flying out of his glove. A run scores to make it 4-1, but Billy very close to getting the final out by tagging out Hudson, who started around towards second base.
Ryan Denard Span makes that play happen for the Minnesota Twins. All out hustle on the bases. Look how close he is to Cayaspo. Right at his feet before he can unload that throw. That makes the difference at first base. Couldn't get anything on the throw. Couldn't throw it accurately. That gets the Twins another run. That's a routine double play ball right there. Without that runner in the lap of Cayaspo, Royals will turn that one over 6-4-3 every time.
No RBI for Hudson. So he reaches, and Harris comes around from second base on an error 4. Joe Mauer 0 for 2 against Gilmesh with a strikeout, and that's over third and into the left field corner. Besednik plays it well, so Scott Olger will hold Hudson at third. Joe Mauer has just hit his 6th double of the year.
When a left-handed hitter sees a right-handed sinker ball, and most of the pitches are going to be the outer part of the plate. Good location right there, tailing action. Ball flattened out a little bit. It allows Mauer to get a good look at it. Get it right on the button. Just fair inside that left field line.
And now the Royals will walk Justin Morneau and set up the righty-righty with Thompson and Kadire. So even though this is an intentional walk, it is the 6th walk given up by the Royals in less than 4 innings. Morneau walked against Gilmesh in the third, singled with an RBI and scored a run in the first. So a big matchup here in a 3-run game in the 4th inning. Not that Kadire could put the final nail in the coffin, but he certainly could take the Royals temporarily out of the game with a hit here. If the Royals get Michael Kadire, they're still in the game.
Minnesota sent 7 men to the plate in the third. Kadire the 7th to bat here in the 4th.
Into the right field corner, but foul. Kadire has already driven in 2. Split told you that he had 12 RBIs during the 9-game homestand against Boston, the Royals, and the Indians. And now he leads Minnesota with 15 RBIs this year. 1-1. Thompson, a 16th round pick of the Cardinals back in 2002 out of Dixie Junior College in Utah. He is from Las Vegas. 1 ball, 2 strikes.
Thing you know about Brad Thompson when he comes into the ball game, he will be in the strike zone. Strike thrower, so you can count on that. If he has his normal stuff, you'll see ground balls. Twins left and loaded in the third. Royals will hope to do that again here in the 4th.
Had him reaching, and Kadire just barely makes contact.
You mentioned Kadire leading them in RBIs right now. He also led them down the stretch last year with Marnova with that stress fracture of the lower back. Kadire came in from right field to play first base and was red hot. 24 RBIs the last 3 weeks of the year as these guys went 17-4 to come out of nowhere to force a playoff against Detroit.
And now Kendall wants to go out and talk over this next 1-2 pitch with Thompson.
How about the Twins last year? They're in first place 8 days total of the year. Detroit was in first place 164 days. And you win it.
Well, the Royals really helped out Minnesota because the Royals were very tough against the Tigers, but did not play well against Minnesota. And then the Royals were swept in the final 3 games of the regular season at the Metrodome, which led to the 1-game playoff. Grounded to Betancourt. So the force at second base. Minnesota gets another run, but they had stranded 7 in the first 4 innings. Minnesota has scored in 3 of their 4 at-bats. Royals getting a run in the bottom of the 3rd. And the Royals are still part of the game because the Twins have stranded 7 in 4 innings. Royals will send up Billy Butler, Jose Guillen, and Alberto Callaspo. And Carl Pavano off to a much better start tonight than on Sunday when the Royals pushed him all around target field. He gave up 7 runs on 11 hits in 3 1/3. 1-1 on Billy. Looked at a called 3rd strike in the 1st inning against Pavano, who has struck out 2 and in typical Pavano fashion hasn't walked anyone. In fact, he has walked 1 in 19 1/3 innings. 2-1.
He's also a guy that when you get to him, it can happen very quickly, like he did last weekend up in Minneapolis. Kind of cruising along in the ball game, but you can pick up 4 or 5 hits in the course of about 14 or 15 deliveries because he's going to be in the zone. So get the ball up in the strike zone. See if you can jump on it. Still a part of this ball game. Long way to go. Down by just 3. It could be a whole lot worse than this.
Full count. Pavano is originally from the Red Sox organization. You have to go back to '94. And then he was part of a big trade. He went from the Red Sox to the Expos in '97 and the Pedro Martinez deal. And he strikes out Butler again. That's 3 for Pavano. Major League Baseball and People magazine are looking for individuals who make a difference in their community. 30 everyday All-Stars will be honored at the 2010 All-Star Game in Anaheim. To nominate, go to peopleallstars.com. 0-1 on Jose Guillen, grounded out to third his first time. So Guillen, who had 447 on the trip with 4 home runs, scored 9, drove in 8, and he's hit in 11 straight. 1-1.
He is one of the real difference makers with the Royals offense this year. Bat speed looks very similar to what it was a couple years ago, when he was clearly the best bat in the middle of the Royals lineup, bar none, and nobody else even close at that time. In fact, I asked Mike Barnett, with him in the middle of the order, what I saw, and I said, is he head and shoulders above anybody else that the Royals have in the middle lineup? And he didn't want to say it, kind of hem and hawed. Yeah, he is. I mean, he was the guy. Now he has some good people around him with the development of Billy Butler, guys to get on base in front of him. He's capitalized on it. But the bat speed is there. Legs healthy enough now that he's able to generate the power. A lot of balls that fell in the warning track or in front of the track last year, now reaching the fence or beyond.
And Pavano piling up the strikeouts. He has 4 back-to-back to begin the 4th inning.
The last 3 guys since he retired, he's got no pitches out of the strike zone. The Sednick on the fly ball to right field was the fastball up. He got Butler on a breaking ball off of the plate, down and away. He got on a cutter right there to Guillen. That one also appeared to be off the plate. So now Pavano not only a strike thrower, but has the Royals chasing balls out of the zone.
Strike to Alberto Callaspo, who is better than a .500 career hitter against Pavano. Alberto homered twice in the game on Sunday when the Royals beat Pavano and the Twins at Target Field. Lifted to center, but Span is right there. So Pavano faces 3 in the 4th. Cast tonight telling you about couple of roster moves involving the bullpen. They're going to get their work tonight.
Well, Brad Thompson in there right now. You hope to get 2 or 3 innings out and try to keep the club in the ball game. Right now, a little bit of a problem. Pavano getting out of the strike zone instead of just something down and getting ground balls. So Royals still part of it. Didn't necessarily have to be that way. It could have been worse.
So Thompson coming in after Gil Meche goes 3 1/3 innings. And Minnesota has scored in 3 of 4 innings, but haven't been able to put together a big inning. 2 in the first, down in order in the second, and then the 3rd and 4th innings were big because Minnesota had the bases loaded in both innings but scored just 1 run, and they have left 7 on base already. Kubel broke his bat. 2 balls and 1 strike against Thompson, who came on. Got a ground ball from Orlando Hudson with runners at first and second and 1 out. Looked like the Royals might get out of it with a double play, but Alberto Callaspo's throw to Billy Butler was wide. And then after a double and an intentional walk, Thompson got out of it when the bases were loaded. Ankiel back in center field. Kubel is out. He is 0 for his last 15. Well, good to see that Chris made it back safely. You know, he basically took the whole road trip with us.
See in Minneapolis too?
I know he was.
Toronto and Detroit.
He was in Minneapolis. In fact, he might have made a friend while he was there.
He met Justin Morneau.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that Twins fans come down here to Kansas City. This is the only time they're in town on a weekend. Next 2 times in, it's midweek.
Thome deep to left. The wind is blowing that way, and he's into his own bullpen. Home run number 45 in his career against the Royals. And the 567th of his career overall.
Well, he's found a home here in the American League where he can be a designated hitter. Ball down in the zone, just drop the bat head on it. He has power, loft power all the way around. Get the ball in the air. The wind certainly helps this one, but he put quite a charge in it. Thome, who had no home runs in 17 games with the Dodgers last year after that trade from the White Sox out west. And the Dodgers picked him up knowing that he was going to be a bat off the bench. He agreed to that for the first time in his career. He's not going to be a regular, but he knew he had an opportunity to win and play in the postseason.
Well, Thompson, a sinker ball pitcher, just like Pavano, as we were talking about earlier. Sinker ball pitchers, over the course of their career, they're going to get a lot more ground balls and fly balls, but a lot of those fly balls end up landing on the other side of the fence. J.J. Hardy 0 for 2, 0 for his last 13. Very high in the air to left field. 2 down. Don't forget, before and after every game on Fox Sports Kansas City, join us for Royals Live. Joel Goldberg brings you the latest Royals news and breaks down the game's action. For complete Royals pre- and post-game coverage, tune into Royals Live on Fox Sports Kansas City.
I do miss getting on him for 9 innings.
Which isn't very difficult to do,
Oh, no,
depending on the day, right?
Yeah. Well, he'll always do something to give you a chance.
Betancourt throwing low. Butler handles it. So Thompson gives up the home run, and Minnesota has a 4-run lead. 5-1 Twins lead. Royals coming up in the bottom of the 5th. Hey, Ink College nights are a cheap date at the ballpark. High school and college students with a valid school ID get select Field Plaza, outfield box, or high field infield tickets for just $7. That's a $19 discount. And the next one is coming up on Wednesday, April the 28th. Rick Ankiel hit it right on the nose in the second inning, but grounded into a 3-6-3 double play. So he is 0 for his last 16, coming off a tough road trip. Just 3 out of 31. He did have a 2-home run game in Minnesota.
He also has the hardest hit ball of any of the Royals here tonight, even though it was turned into a double play. Justin Morneau has the defensive play of the night here so far. I mean, this ball is absolutely whistled. Morneau holding the runner on at first base. Very little reaction time right here. I mean, that ball is blistered. Fortunately for him, to his glove side. It gets by him. This extra base is rattling down in the corner.
One ball, 2 strikes with Jason Kendall and Alex Gordon coming up. Pavano's given up 1 run, 3 hits. The Royals scored in the 3rd. David DeJesus single scored Unievsky Betancourt. Down on strikes, and Pavano has 5. Jason Kendall coming up with 1 out, and we'll take a look at tonight's trivia question brought to you by AT&T. Who are the only 2 catchers ever to have 190 or more base hits in a single season?
Was that a clue?
I would think so. Now, I went on and on about this last year, and I might be the only one who is impressed with this. But Joe Mauer, he won a batting title. We know that. He won the MVP, which he deserved. But he finished 6th in the American League in hits. And you say, well, so what? Well, you forget he missed a month, and there were only 5 hitters in the whole league who had more hits than him, and he missed the first month. That's how good he was for 5 months.
His first at bat of the season was against the Royals, that home run to left center field. I think that's an at bat you remember for a long time, isn't it? I mean, came out of nowhere to just go ahead and leave the yard.
Well, he's coming off a back injury in spring training and missed a month. You know, how long is it going to take him to get ready? And, you know, we say so often, well, it's going to be like spring training for him for at least a couple of weeks. And the first pitch from Sidney Ponson ends up in the seats in left field. So much for taking a couple of weeks to settle back in. Kendall flied to center on a nice play by Span in the 3rd inning. Great play at first by Morneau. That's 2 defensive gems turned in by Morneau already.
Well, Morneau, you hear about his bat all the time, and the run production, but also what he does defensively. Big guy over first base, 6'4" and about 235 pounds. Pretty agile. Remember Kent Herbeck? He was a big guy that had a surprisingly good glove at that position.
Won a couple of rings with the Twins. Ken Herbeck did.
Wanted to be a professional wrestler when his baseball career was over. I don't think he ever got that done, did he?
You know, that's the kind of statement I think you make earlier in your career before the bank account starts to load up, and then you start to ask yourself, do I want to fish every day and hunt in the fall and the winter, or do I want to get thrown around a wrestling ring for several months during the year?
Well, plus Herbeck played long enough where the body is just going to naturally hurt from playing this game, especially on artificial turf like they had in the Metrodome. Yeah, I think he grew out of that just in time.
drilled to center. Span got turned around and still makes a play. So another well hit out for the Royals against Pavano. Power equipment, powerful, lightweight, dependable, versatile. Yard Care Solutions start at steeldealers.com. And by Chevrolet, come out to see yourself why 1,000 people a day are switching to Chevy. See your Kansas City area Chevy dealer. Split, your thoughts?
All lined up. Like the colors in uniform. Dusty Hughes on for the 8th time this year. Last pitched on Tuesday in Toronto. 1/3 of an inning, 1 pitch. Also went Sunday against Minnesota. 1/3 of an inning in that ball game. Royals now have 3 lefties in the pen.
And for a while in spring training, you wondered would they have 1 lefty in the pen. John Parrish, a non-roster invitee. Dusty Hughes certainly wasn't a lock. Bruce Chen is the 3rd lefty in the bullpen now, and he started at AAA Omaha.
They figured to use Chen in middle innings, long relief. Parrish in the late innings. Hughes a little bit different. He's more of a soft tosser, sweeping breaking ball, throws slightly across his body. Makes him pretty deceptive to the left-handed hitters.
Denard Span on base twice with a walk and a single. He has scored a run and he has stolen a base. 2 balls, 2 strikes. You're talking about him moving around the outfield. After the 2007 season, when Torrey Hunter signed as a free agent with the Angels, Denard Span figured it was my turn to be in center field, but the Twins went out and got Carlos Gomez from the Mets, and that just crushed Denard Span's spirits. But of all people, Torrey Hunter said, hey, hang in there, keep playing hard, the Twins know what they're doing. He broke into the big leagues in 08 and played in right field, made his major league debut against the Royals. 2 years later, he is the everyday center fielder, and in spring training he got a 5-year contract extension. He's going to head to the bench here. Dusty Hughes off to a good start, 1 away in the 6th.
Dusty Hughes, they have to move it around the plate, mostly away. So hitters from the left side may be a little bit surprised when he comes inside with the fastball, since he's not necessarily overpowering, but needled the inside corner. Good start to the inning for Dusty Hughes. Wasn't it Denard Span that hit his mother with a foul ball line drive in spring training?
That's right. and went running over there.
Yeah.
And Jorge Posada, they were playing the Yankees. Posada, the catcher, also ran over there with him to make sure his mom was all right, which she was.
He stayed in the ball game, went back up, struck out in that at bat, stayed in the ball game. Ron Gardner thought about taking him out, said, no, go ahead and stay. He came out of the game a couple innings later, and his mom got mad at him. You need to stay in and play. I'm okay. Come on, Mom, you're killing me.
After I almost killed you. Second hit for Orlando Hudson, and the third time he's been on base. Let's answer tonight's AT trivia question with Joe Mauer coming up. We're the only two catchers ever to have 190 or more base hits in a single season. Ivan Rodriguez, 198 in 99, and Jason Kendall, 190 in 2003.
Three of the more durable catchers of this era. Rodriguez catching all those games in the heat of Arlington.
Tonight, Mauer has doubled in the fourth inning, 1 for 3. One ball, one strike. Joe Mauer had 191 hits last year, but he doesn't qualify in our trivia question. Kevin Schenk telling me that only 151 of those were as a catcher, also spending time as the designated hitter. Posednik coming up in left field. So Mauer 1 for 4, and Hudson back to first base. And now Justin Morneau, who has walked twice, singled, driven in a run, and scored a run. Hudson stealing his first base of the year back in the third inning. Tonight's copyrighted telecast is presented by the authority of the Kansas City Royals and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form, and the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of the Kansas City Royals Baseball Corporation. Ryan Lefevre with Paul Splittorff, Joel Goldberg with producer Kevin Schenk, director Steve Kurtenbach, associate producers Al Broughton, Sam Abramson, and the producer of Royals Live is TJ McGinnis. And a big thank you and job well done to our crew tonight who saved our telecast. Especially Chris Bailey and Sean McStay, the two engineers. We were about 20 minutes away from the scheduled first pitch, and our production truck had no power, 0. So that's why there was no Hy-Vee Royals Live with Joel and Frank. The boys worked hard. They found the problem, and they are the reason that not only we are on television tonight, but the Minnesota Twins are on television tonight.
That's a big time save.
Right center field, medium deep. It is into the wind. So De Jesus coming up his last few steps, and the inning is over. A scoreless 6 for Dusty Hughes.
Betancourt up, guys. Was talking to Eddie Rodriguez about him, and Eddie got a phone call from Uni in the offseason, and Uni said that he's on a mission. He was unhappy with the last couple of years. Eddie was the minor league manager in the Seattle system back in '07, came up to Seattle to the big league club, and told me he remembers seeing things defensively from Uni that he hadn't seen from a shortstop since Ozzie Smith or Omar Vizquel, and he thought, wow. But last couple of years, obviously, Uni has struggled. Eddie says his job now is to keep him focused, bring him back down to earth after those home runs, remind him to be patient at the plate, don't give away at bats. He said it's early, but he likes what he's seeing so far. Their relationship, he says, goes well beyond the uniform, both of Cuban descent, but he also said no special treatment for Uni. He is a coach for the Royals, guys.
All right, thanks, Joel. Well, you know, Dayton Moore has gotten on Betancourt about what he needs to do. Trey Hillman has gotten on him. Kevin Seitzer has gotten on him, but the guy that he fears is Eddie Rodriguez. And we'll see what Eddie has to say about Uni chasing that pitch. It's 2-2.
It's one of those pitches you don't see many of them up in your eyes from Pavano. When you finally get one, you think you can turn on it. Uni also spent a lot of time with Ty Hill in conditioning department this past off season. Very important time for him.
Harris throws him out. So Betancourt 1 for 2, and now Carl Pavano's retired 8 in a row. Well, if you're traveling this season, you can take the Royals with you. Just subscribe to MLB.tv today, and you can see every Royals game live or on demand right on your computer. Local in-market blackouts will apply. Visit Royals.com to order and get more details. MLB.tv, baseball everywhere. David was right on that slider, but didn't make solid contact. 0-1.
Changeup been a good pitch for Pavano over the last couple innings. I would think David would see one either right here, or certainly the pitch after that. That was too good a swing to be had right there for Pavano.
Got the outside. 0-2. Well, as I say, sometimes it was in the bigger box.
Sometimes when a guy gets on a roll, he's got that umpire calling strikes. That's when you expand the zone a little bit. Test the waters, as they say. See how far out he'll go. Good time to throw another one out there.
Drilled to deep right center. Kadire to the track. It's into a crosswind at the wall, and it stays in. Kadire thought it was gone, so he stopped playing, and here comes De Jesus all the way around for an inside the park home run.
David hit this one a ton. As you said, Ryan, the wind was not going to help it. Hold it up and push it out deeper into the outfield. I think that's over the fence anyhow. I think that hit the railing. Hard to see from this angle because of all the people that are standing out there, but I think that was a home run all the way.
Yeah, that's over the little padded railing there. That's the third time in David's career he's had an inside the park home run. So Kadire was closest to it, and you can see why he stopped on the play.
Well, Kadire stopped, and so did Span, the center fielder. He didn't go to try to chase it down either.
So a 3-run game. De Jesus has driven in both runs. Now Pasednik down 1 ball, 2 strikes. David said, I just started running.
He was running like he thought that was an extra base hit.
Pasednik has grounded out, flied out. And that right to left wind will blow that into the seats. Still 2 balls, 2 strikes. That guy there in the holding the bill of his cap, he had 2 chances of that ball. He missed it on the way in and missed it on the way out.
He could have helped out the umpires a whole lot if he'd just make a play.
Whiff, whiff, whiff. He had 3 chances at it.
Hadn't touched it yet.
Pasednik 0 for 3, 2 down in the 6th inning. David, after grounding out in the 1st inning, was 0 for his last 10. And a slow finish to the road trip. But back on track tonight with a 2-out RBI single and now an inside the park home run. So 2 away, and now Billy Butler has had a tough night against Pavano. Billy with outstanding career numbers against Pavano coming into the game. In 23 at-bats, 11 hits, couple of home runs. But tonight he has struck out twice. And Pavano throws a changeup for strike 1.
Seems like Pavano has been a step ahead of Billy all night long. He's sitting fastball, he gets the changeup. Looks away, the ball comes inside. Looked bad on his last swing and missed it. Open the 4th inning. Haven't been many pitchers in the league that have been able to strike out Billy twice in one night. Usually sees the ball while he gets to everybody. But that has not been the case here this evening against Pavano.
One and 2. Billy got off to a good start on the trip in Detroit and Minnesota. Had a tough time in the first 2 games in Toronto. Grounded into 3 double plays and then a couple of hits in the final game of the series. Still 1 and 2. A little bit high, 2 balls, 2 strikes, and now Pavano up over 90 pitches. It's a good night to pitch. Temperature in the mid-70s at first pitch. Nobody warming up behind him in the bullpen.
It's a good time of year to pile on the innings. You're strong early in the season. You mentioned the temperature conditions ideal. 3-run lead. Got some room to breathe right here. Already had a better month of April this year than he had a year ago. Last year, 0-3 April with a 9.5 ERA. He'll get one more start this month, middle of next week. Rose would like to get something else off of him before he comes out of the ball game. Already a part of the game, but nobody warming up behind him, so we want to get something else off the starter.
Well, on Sunday against the Royals, at this point, he had showered and gotten into his street clothes. Didn't make it through the 4th inning before giving up 7 runs on 11 hits. And now 1 out away from giving the Twins at least 6 innings. And he ties up Butler. Orlando Hudson throws him out, inning over. Royals get another run. David DeJesus with an inside the park home run. Minnesota with 2 in the first inning, and 2 out RBIs from Morneau and Kadire. And Gil Meche going 3 in the third innings, 5 walks for him. David DeJesus has driven in both runs for the Royals, his second coming on this over the fence inside the park home run. So David is driven in 2, working on his 168th consecutive errorless game in the outfield. He passed Amos Otis for the all-time Royals record for an outfielder at the end of the last road trip.
Still an adjustment period for him in right field. Says he's still not used to all the slice coming off the bat of the right-handed hitters. Kind of turned him around a little bit on that last road trip. A play in Toronto, I remember he had trouble with. I think there was one in Minnesota he also had to battle a little bit. Balls that were slicing on him. Says he tends to forget right-hand hitters how much it's going to move.
Deep left center, off the hand, so he didn't get all of it. And Ankiel runs it down in deep left center field. Kadire is driven in 2. He is 2 for 4.
All the outfielders pretty happy not to be in the Metrodome, you think?
Absolutely. Both not having to deal with the ceiling and then the hard turf. Here's the Twins box score. 5 runs, 7 hits. And Kubel into right field, hit that down around the end of the bat. And DeJesus has room in front of the track. So Kubel 0 for 3 and now 0 for his last 16. Minnesota has spread around their offense tonight. 5 different Twins have scored runs. RBI for Justin Morneau, 2 for Michael Kadire. Jim Thome, who stands in now, hit a home run in the 5th inning. And another run coming home on an error. So Thome with his 45th career home run against the Royals. In his career overall, 567. Going deep against Brad Thompson in the 5th inning. So he is 2 away from tying Rafael Palmeiro for 12th on the all-time list.
Twins signed Thome in January of this year. At the time, they needed a right-handed bat, first baseman and center fielder, but they had a chance to get a character guy who would be strong in their clubhouse and with their young players.
Did you see how that bat? From beating Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is 12-4. Baltimore at Boston. Boston just 6-10. Baltimore 2-14. Detroit and Texas. Vladimir Guerrero is homered for the Rangers. They have slipped to 6-9 in the West. Chicago is hosting Seattle. Paul Konerko has 6 home runs. White Sox just 5-11, and a couple of games on the West Coast. Jose Guillen going for it all. He's down 0-2, 11-game hitting streak on the line. He is 0 for 2 so far tonight. Guillen's career high is a 14-gamer, and that was with the Royals a couple of seasons ago at the end of the 08 season. Royals with 2 runs on 4 hits so far against Pavano. David DeJesus has driven in both runs, one with an inside the park home run. Still 0-2.
Pavano trying to stay away from the power of Guillen, pitching him away. Doesn't want to come inside, especially with the wind blowing out the left.
Mauer wanted that pitch a little bit higher than that, and Guillen is still alive.
They must feel pretty good about Pavano's velocity at this point in the ballgame, or they wouldn't try to elevate it like that. They had Guillen swinging through a similar pitch to that early in this at bat.
Pavano now up over 100 pitches, and still nobody warming up in the pen. I guess one of the good things, Split, if there is something, when you have an early exit from a previous start. Pavano only threw 79 pitches on Sunday. Maybe that means he's got a few more bullets in the chamber.
Probably going to look at that, because you look at what happens over a 3 or 4 start stretch. Probably more important middle of the year when the innings and pitches start to pile up.
Rubel makes the play, so Guillen is 0 for 3. And now Alberto Callaspo. So this is not like a Carl Pavano start against the Royals, at least so far. You can understand why the Royals might have been licking their chops before tonight's game. Harris makes the play in foul territory. Carl Pavano, in 10 games in his career against the Royals before tonight, his ERA was 7.84. The Royals just killed him. Tonight, just 2 runs and 6 2/3.
And the Royals had a 344 batting average against.
Ankiel hits it hard again. Morneau down to his knees and over to Pavano, and that's the inning. Pavano's retired 13 of the last 14. game 1 of 3. Here's our defensive play of the game, brought to you by the Home Depot, doing more on defense. And this is our production truck. On the left is Sean McStay. On the right, Chris Bailey. And if you're just joining us, about 20 minutes before first pitch, that truck was dead. No power. And that truck controls both the Royals and the Twins telecast. And it looked like for a while that we were not going to be able to bring you tonight's game. But those two engineers figured out the problem. And we were able to bring you the first pitch. So thank you. Great job, Sean and Chris. J.J. Hardy leads off the 8th inning. Our Chevy call to the bullpen brings in Kyle Farnsworth, the 4th Royals pitcher tonight. Dusty Hughes looked good in a couple of innings.
Gave up just 1 hit, had 1 strikeout. Farnsworth last outing, the Monday game against Toronto. Before that, the Friday game against Minnesota.
Hardy reaches out, pulls it to deep left. Again, the wind blowing that way. Gone. And for Hardy, that snaps an 0 for 14.
When you think Hardy, you think a defensive shortstop, but he's just a couple years removed from a 24 home run campaign with Milwaukee. Breaking ball stayed in the middle of the plate, flattened out a little bit, so didn't hit it on the ground, able to get it in the air where the wind helped it a little bit, just enough. Wanted the breaking ball down and away. Stayed just slightly on the inner half of the plate, that allows Hardy to get some leverage.
Two 2-0 now on Brendan Harris. That's Minnesota's 2nd home run tonight. Jim Thome homered against Thompson in the 5th inning. 2-1. Harris 0 for 2 with a walk and a run scored.
You mentioned Nick Punto, one on the disabled list, hadn't played in the last 6 ball games. Concerned about a groin injury on him. Thought he might be ready to play yesterday, but also with the threat of rain here tonight, they thought, well, put him in tonight. What if the field's bad? He ends up getting hurt. Still early in the year. You don't want to lose a guy for an extended period of time. So instead of risking anything, they went ahead and moved him to the DL. Sounded like they're getting closer to playing him instead of DLing him.
Alex charges into the grass and gets Harris for the first out. That's a part of the DL that we don't discuss very often. It's a minimum of 15 days, and he goes on today, but you can you can go back to the last game that he played. So even though he wasn't on the DL a week ago, you can go back to a week. So technically, he really only has to be on the DL maybe 7 or 8 days.
Twins have some depth in their infield, some solid backup players. This is an important stretch for them. 9-game trip covering 10 days here in Kansas City, on to Detroit and then Cleveland. So all division opponents. In fact, when this road trip is over, they will have seen everybody in the American League Central.
Well, you got to feel for Denard Span. We were just telling you the story about him hitting his mom with a foul ball in spring training. Maybe you saw the highlight. He just hit a line drive and hit a young fan in one of the dugout suites. And doggone it, man, when you have those close seats, you got to watch the game. Especially when you have young kids. I mean, it's fun to get close to the action, but that ball gets to the first few rows of seats very quickly.
It's especially dangerous in the Metro Zone because all those seats were elevated a little bit. And the ball seemed to get in there by quicker than any place else. And those guys are on down past the third base dugout. They're down there a ways.
Span is out. So he is 1 for 4 with a walk. That's hard on the players. I mean, it's certainly feel for a fan, in this case a very young fan, and the people in the dugout suite certainly shaken up over that, but players feel horrible about it. And most guys, in fact Frank's even told us on a telecast that when he would hit a low line drive like that into the seats, just turn away. I mean, there's nothing really you can do from home plate. You hope that if someone's hurt, first aid will get there and help the person, but it affects the player as much as anyone else in the stadium.
Well, the game is so fast, even as a fan, you really can't watch it that close. I mean, defensively, you're ready on every pitch. And as a fan, if you're in there that close, you're not going to be ready on every pitch, even if you're watching the game intently. I mean, sitting on the dugout bench now, most of them have the netting in front of the bench now. Well, that's a safety precaution. But the screen behind the plate really doesn't even extend down to the dugouts anymore. It is a fast game.
Well, I told Frank this on the road trip. We were in Chicago a couple years ago, and we weren't televising, and Jeff Davenport got us some seats right down by the Royals dugout in Chicago on the first base side. And I was no world-class player, don't get me wrong, but for someone who played in college, I was uncomfortable down there when a right-hand batter came up. And, you know, people all around us are talking, they're not paying attention, and I think people don't realize how quickly that ball gets into the seats and how dangerous a foul ball at 90 to 110 miles an hour can be.
I have been down there a lot, and occasionally I get down near the dugout or the end of a dugout to do an interview or something after the ball game. I forget how fast that game is. And I see these guys perform today and say, man, that thing is moving. I mean, there's no way I could even begin to think about being that fast at this point in my life. But, I mean, you still forget it. It looks so easy from the stands and on television, but you get down there close. I mean, there's a reason the coaches are wearing headgear now.
That's right.
And they're out there every day. And they're on every pitch.
Royals had a player in camp a few years ago that tragically died on the field as a minor league first base coach hit by a line drive, and that's a former major league player that should have pretty good reactions, better reactions than the common fan. Man, no kidding. Minnesota was 6 runs, but they have not scored more than 2 runs in an inning. They got 2 in the first, 1 in the third, 1 in the fourth, 1 in the fifth, and 1 here in the 8th. They have already stranded 8, so it could be much worse than that. And now they have stranded 9 as Busetnik leaps up on the line drive from Mauer.
Live. After the game, we will take a look at Gil Meche's short outing. Carl Pavano reverses course after a dreadful start against the Royals last week. Plus, we will recap the Royals roster moves of the day, interviews, analysis, and much more coming up. We're going to get Frank on the show, guys. Back to you.
All right, Joel. Well, Denard Span, who we told you hit that line drive into the dugout suite off of third base and appeared to hit a very young fan, walked over to that suite on his way to center field just to make sure that everyone is all right. Really good guy. Got a chance to talk to him when the Royals were in Minnesota. Here's Matt Guerrier taking over in the bottom of the 8th inning after 7 very good innings from Carl Pavano. Two-0 on Jason Kendall. Still sitting on a 14-game hitting streak. A tough luck 0 for 2 tonight. Denard Span making a nice running play into right center field on Jason in the 3rd, and then Justin Morneau making a headlong diving stop on a line drive near the first base line back in the 5th inning. Kendall, Gordon, and Betancourt coming up against Guerrier in the 8th. And a 4-pitch walk.
First freebie of the night. Last thing the Twins wanted there, reliever coming in and dealing out a free pass. Royals would have to feel they can get back in this ballgame if the lower third can do something to open the 8th.
And Kendall thinking more about what his team needs than what he would need to extend his hitting streak. Taking that 4-pitch walk and not finding something close to swing on and extend the hitting streak.
A veteran guy like that would probably tell you, you know, I probably wasn't going to hit in 162 straight anyhow.
Joe DiMaggio is safe. Two to Alex as Guerrier nails the outside. Alex 0 for 2, and like Kendall, Alex lost a hit to Denard Span. His was in the 5th inning, lining out to Denard.
Focus for Gordon was use the middle of the field. Don't look to try to pull like he has the last couple of years, but you ought to be tempted right here with the whole right side of that infield wide open.
Just missed down and away.
We're not going to give him much of a chance to pull the ball through that hole. I know the first baseman holding the base runner. Middle infielder's looking for a double play opportunity. But I think at this point, the last thing you want Alex to think about is trying to pull the ball.
2-2. Well, Joe Nathan gets most of the attention, but this is one of the unsung heroes. Not as far as the Twins are concerned. They know Matt Guerrier's value, but this is a guy you really don't talk about a whole lot. But he is that bridge that we talk about so often from the starter to Joe Nathan. Shallow center field, and the Royals have 2 on with nobody out. Span stumbles, but able to catch the ball before it squirted through his legs. Alex is 1 for 3.
I think Royals fans, with the problems the Royals bullpen has had getting to Joaquin Story, would appreciate a bridge guy like Guerrier. Led the American League in outings a year ago with 79. How about 76 the year before that? 73 back in 07. So yeah, one of the more reliable arms in the entire league.
Yudhievsky Betancourt doubled and scored in the 3rd inning, grounded out in the 6th. This is not a save situation. At least not for Guerrier. The situation can change and become a save situation, but Minnesota so far this year 6 for 6 in save opportunities.
After Nathan went down with the injury, they thought they would go with a closer by committee. Guerrier was one of 4 that they were considering. Moved him from the bridge guy to later in the ball game because of his ability to throw strikes, get ground balls. There's another one in the dugout sweeps.
Well, Roush had some experience. He had 26 career saves. There he is in the dugout, so he hasn't even made his way to the bullpen yet. That could change if the Royals do something in this inning. So Betancourt down on strikes. 2 on, 1 out. And while David DeJesus digs in, we'll take a look at tonight's Miller Lite Taste Greatness moment. David DeJesus back in the 6th. Over the fence, but ruled in play. David never stopped running. And ended up with an inside the park home run, the 3rd of his career. And now he's hit by a pitch. So the Royals have something going. The tying run comes to the plate with 1 out.
Royals can play with some confidence right here. They already have 5 come from behind wins, and the fact that they've been able to get through the middle innings and stay reasonably close. Now to the point where you have the tying run at home plate. Jesse Crane out warming up. Brian Dunsing. Dunsing a starter late last year. Crane has been a reliever his whole career. Crane getting ready quick. Crane was one of the 4 that they were considering for a closer.
So the bases loaded, 1 out. And Posednik gets a chance to bat against Guerrier.
This is what the Royals wanted. Men on base when you get to the middle part of the batting order, guys with the batting average and opportunity to drive in runs. Posednik, a good contact hitter, likes to take the ball the opposite way. Infield straight up for Minnesota.
Now maybe you're wondering, with a lefty warming up in the bullpen, why don't they bring in Dunsing to face Posednik, who's hitting over 400? Here's why. Posednik 1 out of 14 against Guerrier. So why mess with that? One ball, 1 strike. Posednik 0 for 3 so far tonight. 9-game hitting streak. Perhaps on the line right here.
Guerrero's strength is a sinking fastball. So if you're Posednik, you've got that on your mind. Figuring that's probably what you're going to get.
2-1. What you don't know about a 1 for 14, how many of those balls were hit hard right at someone? Doesn't necessarily mean he popped out and grounded out weakly. The 13 times he made an out. To the right side, Hudson will get the out at second base. A run scores, so it's a 3-run game. Posednik avoids the double play. And we'll see what the Twins do with Billy Butler coming up. Posednik drives in his 7th of the year.
Getting late in the ballgame where you hate to give up outs right here because he gets you closer to the end. But got to make something happen with every at bat. Put the ball in play, force Minnesota to defend you. Even though you get the out, you do get a runner home. Another one still in scoring position with Gordon in 3rd.
Billy Billy 0 for 3 tonight. Struck out twice against Pavano and grounded out to second base. Keeping an eye on Pasetnik, who is 7 out of 8 in stolen base attempts. By the way, the Royals did not have a single stolen base at Toronto. They're 5 for 5 in stolen base attempts against Joe Mauer and the Twins. Now, Billy Butler has had a lot more success against Guerrero than Pasetnik has. Billy 4 out of 12. You don't normally run against Minnesota. The rest of the league is just 1 out of 7 trying to run against Joe Mauer, but the Royals were 5 for 5.
Not a good running situation right here. Down by too much on the scoreboard. Got a big RBI man right in here. I don't think you want to risk getting Pasetnik thrown out trying to steal the base.
And that's probably why Mauer went out to the mound. His career is thrown over to first base.
Don't even worry about it. We make a pitch right here. We get it out of the inning. Outfield playing pretty deep against Billy for a couple of reasons. One, you respect his gap power. And 2, you want to keep the ball in front of you. You can give up another run here, but you don't want Pasetnik to score.
2-0. Twins rather have gotten a lot out of Carl Pavano. We mentioned picked him up on waivers from the Indians. They have gotten a lot more out of Matt Guerrero the last several years, and they picked him up off of waivers from the Pirates. Billy drives it deep into left center field. The wind pushes it, but not enough. Didn't sound like he got it, but he takes it to the front of the warning track. Royals get 1 in the bottom of the 8th. In a run tonight, he has also turned in the Chevy play of the game.
Came very early in the ball game. Rick and Kill just bent the seed down at him at first base. He was playing in tight, holding the base runner to his glove side as he came off the bag. Stayed down with it. Kind of routine once he was able to make the pick. Not close to second. Quick return throw from the shortstop, Hardy.
And he'll face a new pitcher. Robinson Tejeda is the 5th Royals pitcher tonight. Twins got 4 off of Meche, 1 off of Thompson, 1 off of Farnsworth.
Royals Royals hopeful that Tejeda's maybe turned the corner a little bit. Had a good inning of work on Wednesday at Toronto. Also solid in his Monday night outing against the Blue Jays.
One ball, two strikes. Morneau, Kadire, Kubel coming up. Chased a pitch that was up. If it comes down, Ankiel wants it and makes the play. That might have been a roof scraper at the Metrodome.
Look, the Royals made 5 changes in their bullpen in the last week.
Well, that'd be 3 roster moves involving, well, no, you're right, it is 5, because when Cologne went out, the Royals brought up Alex Gordon, not another pitcher.
That's a pretty severe shakeup. We're not 3 weeks into the season yet.
Well, the way the game is played today, I mean, there's just no way around it. I mean, back when guys were throwing 300 innings a year and your starter was routinely going 8 or 9 innings a start, well, you don't need to have, 6, 7 guys out there. But now when you're looking at, and I like to keep track, one of the things I look at for every starting pitcher as I'm preparing for the game, and it's a very thin slice this early in the season, but on average, how deep do they go every start? And from what I've seen, most pitchers today, on average, 5 2/3 to 6 1/3 per start. That's not a lot of innings. That's a lot of work from the bullpen. A 1-out walk, and the Royals have walked 7 tonight.
Remember the number last weekend was 22 free passes in the 3 ball games. So they're on that pace again here with tonight. And in that time last week, Minnesota walked 1.
Kubel is 0 for 3 and 0 for his last 16. J.J. Hardy, who is in the hole right now, a couple of batters behind Kubel. He snapped an 0 for 14 with a home run in the 8th. Kubel down, no balls, 2 strikes. There's J.J. Hardy. Homered against Kyle Farnsworth, leading off the top of the 8th. Blocked by Kendall.
We mentioned Kubel's power numbers early in the ball game. Big time year last year, but tough postseason. 14 at bats, about 9 punch outs. Twins were swept by the New York Yankees. In fact, for all the times they've gone to the postseason recently, they've had no luck in the postseason.
And most of the time, it's because they're hooking up with the Yankees.
They went 0-10 against New York a year ago with regular season and the postseason. Yankees awful good, admittedly, but so were the Twins.
Kadire leaning, and he's running. Kendall digs it out, and that's pretty close considering what he had to deal with that pitch in the dirt. Kadire steals his 2nd of the year, and the Twins have 3 stolen bases tonight.
Tejeda invites you to run in because his arm action is so long on the bat side. Watch how far that ball goes behind his back before it even gets up to the top. Add in the fact that he bounced the ball on home plate. Tough pitch for Kendall to handle, but that is a long delivery. Takes a while and gives a base runner an extra stride or two. So Kendall has no opportunity there.
He snaps the string. So past Gordon. Kadire had to make sure it got by Gordon, so he advances to third. So Kubel done with his 0 for 16. First and third, one out.
Kubel just trying to make some contact. He knows he's been having a hard time with the bat. Hitless here tonight, but pitches away, and he was just guided that opposite way. Gordon playing well off the line. Nobody anticipating Kubel to go that way.
Jim Thome 1 for 4. That one hit, a home run in the 5th inning, is 45th in his career against the Royals. Up the right field line. Minnesota will add 1 as Kadire scores, and now Kubel is going to be waved home. So Minnesota back out to a 5-run lead. Jim Thome has driven in 3 tonight.
And Ryan, he absolutely drills this ball. Check out the bat speed. Get out in front, turn on that low fastball, and just rip it up the right field line. It'll clear the bases as it goes to the corner. Thome, who earlier in his career had a lower stress factor of his back, much like Morneau. They go through back and core exercises every day, part of their daily routine. He looked pretty healthy there.
You know, he may not be what he was in his prime with the Indians and then at the beginning of his career with the Phillies, but he's not far from it. I mean, he's still plenty dangerous when he comes to the plate. Alexi Casilla will run for him at second base. Still only 1 out. And J.J. Hardy feeling like a brand new hitter in this at-bat. 0 for 3 to start tonight. 0 for his last 14. But then homered against Farnsworth in the 8th, his 3rd home run of the year.
You know, Thome was probably going to be relegated back to the American League because of the designated hitter. When Minnesota signed him this past offseason, they didn't promise him any playing time. They didn't say you'd be the regular designated hitter, but Thome wanted to go there because he said he loved the way the Minnesota Twins play. He said, I want to be part of that. So they were able to reach an agreement. So it's paid off tonight. Solo home run, 2 RBIs on that double.
Got him. Kendall making sure Casilla doesn't advance, and down to first to complete the strikeout. 2 down. Casilla is originally from the Angels organization, just like Alberto Callaspo. And how many little switch hitting infielders have they come up with?
Fielded their team with them.
Oh my gosh. Maicer Izturis, Eric Ibar, Alberto Callaspo, Alexi Casilla. Now, they didn't develop this player, but he had some good years with them. Sean Figgins. And if you want to move to the outfield, Reggie Willits.
We'll see Figgins next week when Seattle comes to town. I think most people thought Casilla would be the everyday second baseman for Minnesota by now. One of the reasons he made their club coming out of camp is there's out of options.
Twins got him a few years ago when they sent J.C. Romero to the Angels. Romero now pitching for the Philadelphia Phillies. Boy, and you talk about a reliever that gave the Royals fits. I mean, when Romero came out of the bullpen, if you want to speed up the games, you could have just waved the white flag and say, okay, let's just move on to the next half inning.
He wasn't the closer either.
No. That was back with J.C. Romero from the left side, LaTroy Hawkins from the right side, setting up Eddie Guardado. 2-2 on Brendan Harris. Minnesota with 4 against Meche and now 4 against the bullpen. Right field, David DeJesus hardly has to move. Inning over. Twins add 2 more and take a 5-run lead to the bottom of the 9th inning. Well, we've had great weather and another nice night at Kauffman Stadium, so those little guys can take their shirts off. Brian Dunsing, the former Nebraska Cornhusker who grew up in Omaha, was warming up as the Royals were trying to rally in the bottom of the 8th. As it turned out, the Royals scored just 1 run, and then Minnesota adding 2, so 5 runs to work with Guillen, Callaspo, and Ankiel coming up.
Easy transition for him, going from the starting rotation back to their bullpen. Really solid down the stretch drive for Minnesota a year ago. Went 5-1, but no problems coming out of the pen right now. He gets one out on 1 pitch here.
So that puts an end to Guillen's hit streak at 11 games, 0 for 4 tonight. Royals need several base runners, obviously, for a chance. And there's a possibility the Royals get a couple of base runners that Brian Dunsing could hook up with his former college teammate, Alex Gordon. Callaspo 1 out of 3 with a 2nd inning single. Dunsing, born in Marysville, Kansas, just south of the Kansas-Nebraska border, but grew up in Omaha.
Interesting mix of players being acquired by Minnesota. Some of them come through their minor league system, like Dunsing, a 3rd-round pick. You've got a trade of Liriano, A.J. Pierzynski, got waivers like we just saw Career. Another trade from Arizona to get Ross, but they kind of come from all over. But most of them are high-round draft choices that they've developed over the last 5 or 6 years.
Harris has to come way in. Bare hands. Callaspo has an infield single.
Just a little number up the third baseline. They're going to play deep because they're not anticipating a bunt of any kind. Sit back, play some defense, keep the ball in front of you. Harris made it close from third.
Well, if the Royals don't come back, Rick Ankiel can accomplish something here. He is 0 for his last 18. A couple of tough luck outs on shots to Justin Morneau, but if he can get a hit here, that'll make a big difference as far as how he feels coming to the ballpark tomorrow, not having to worry about that. And if he avoids a double play, Jason Kendall might have another shot to extend his long hitting streak. Popped up left side. Hardy brings it down, 2 away. And now Jason Kendall 0 for 2 with a walk. Could easily be 2 for 2. Lost a base hit in the third on a running play by Denard Span, running into right center field. And then hit an absolute rocket in the 5th inning, but Justin Morneau went diving on the right side and took an extra base hit away. One and one.
A lot has been said about Kendall and all of this game preparation that he does day in and day out. Talked to him about 3.5 hours before the game tonight. He knew exactly what he wanted to try to do with Gil. Where to work the ball, but Gil had him kind of jumping all over behind the plate here this evening, but able to execute the game plan that he had. And he'll be prepared again tomorrow.
Well, he'll be catching 2-0 Luke Hochaver tomorrow at 6:10. And Nick Blackburn for the Twins. Kendall down on strikes. The ball game is over, and Kendall's long hitting streak comes to an end. So the Minnesota Twins, who scored 8 runs, they never had a big inning. They left 10 on base. And that's what kept the Royals in the game most of the night until 1 in the 8th and 2 in the 9th. And the Twins take game 1, 8-3, and now they've won 3 out of 4 against the Royals this year.
The Royals had all kinds of problems with their ball club last year. You hoped it would change now that they got out of the Metrodome, but the Royals have lost 6 out of the last 9 years. This Minnesota Twins team hoping to turn it around and have a good homestand. They've had some luck in game 1 of the series so far this year, but not so here tonight.
So the winning pitcher is Carl Pavano, who's had an awful time against the Royals in his career. He improves to 3-1, and Gil Meche takes a loss. He is 0-2. So Minnesota takes game 1, 8-3. Time now for Boulevard Royals Live.